Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. For this particular series, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, ThatDarnKitteh. Kitty and I are both going into this story completely new with almost no knowledge of the story or world.
Each segment, we intend to cover what happens in each new chapter and discuss our experience along the way. This is Mistborn Abridged, a blind read-through, and we will be covering chapter 1.
So with chapter 1, I had one hell of a journey, right? Because I had to read this twice. Once for the enjoyment factor, once for the note-taking process for this series. And then, Kitty, you're back from your vacation. Yay!
Yes.
It had been like a week since I read it, so I kind of skimmed it again this morning before we met up for this. So I'm so excited to get into this chapter. How was your experience reading it?
Okay, I also read it before, so I actually read it before my my vacation, and it was because I couldn't put down the book after the prologue. So that is the thing. I just wanted to continue reading, and so my experience of it was right in the moment, just wanting to continue with the story and meet all the new people. And what I really enjoyed about it was just the pace of it, that we continue. It really delivered from the prologue. It wasn't like we are in a completely different setting, but it all so knits together quite nicely. I know nicely is not a great word, but that's how I feel. It was very nice and neat, but still there's a lot that as we go through it, you'll see what we learn. It continues to teach you and to build the world neatly within the chapter, within the happenings, the plot, all of it. It just comes together so nicely. Yeah, I would like to hear because you had several times that you experienced this chapter. Was there a different reading each time?
So the first time I read through it, I got really excited about this luck as a superpower idea. And on my second read through, I thought to myself, well, okay, this isn't really luck. And then I got kind of annoyed. And then as I was skimming through it this morning before our call, I thought, okay, well, actually, it's more of an endearing trait for her to be referring to her power in luck. So I've done a 360 on it.
You've come to terms with it.
Yeah, but we'll get into the specifics of the topic of luck when we get to it. And the chapter opens with another blurb above the chapter number. I consider myself to be a man of principle, but what man does not? This is a very different POV character than the blurb from the prologue, whereas the prologue had a character who seemed very anxious about his place in the world and what these prophecies are telling him. This person seems to be a lot more confident. He has a much larger air of confidence. Yeah. And there's an element of self-rationalizing here. He seems to understand that people from the outside observing him might not have the most favorable things to say. But at the end of the day, he says, I guess it all comes down to one fact. In the end, I'm the one with the armies. So it doesn't matter if he's good, as long as he wins. What did you think of this guy, Kitty?
I see that there is. I'm with you on the change in the two kind of tones. These don't seem to be the same person, because while there is like self-awareness in both of them, in that they're both thinking about how other people will think of them, they actually the one is self-doubt. He's talking about self-doubt, and the other is just saying, oh, well, they'll question me. And then this, like you said, the self-rationalization comes in. The other person is questioning themselves and thinking about their value as a person a lot more internally. Whereas this second blurred person is, I wouldn't even say confident. Confident sounds too positive. When you get to that line of, I'm the one with the armies.
Probably has a lot of enemies anyway.
Yeah, I'm the one with the armies. that when you get to that, you're like, oh, okay, this person's dangerous, and they have power to back up their arrogance. So that's what I got from it, and I'm more and more convinced now that, well, who do you think this is?
If the premise for this world is the hero lost, and if I suspect that the prologue character was the hero who lost, it would make sense that this would be the Lord Ruler then. I have to comment, I absolutely love what you said about both of these blurbs being very concerned about what other people think of them. That's a really interesting connection. I'm wondering if that's going to play as like a theme across the rest of the book for these blurbs.
Well, yeah, we need to definitely keep an eye on the blurbs and see what their function is going forward. Like, it's very easy for me if I'm reading alone to just go, oh, the blurb, and that's interesting, and then it will take me a lot longer to connect things together. This reading like this will definitely help me. Yeah, that's going to be a...
There was one other element of this blurb I wanted to call out, because we had briefly mentioned how I think this is the Lord Ruler. A line in the blurb is, perhaps another person reading of my life would name me a religious tyrant. And we know from the prologue that the obligators are priests. Therefore, I think that's a little bit of evidence that this is the Lord Ruler. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I didn't see it myself. I didn't think about it that much, but I can see the evidence that you pointed out, so I'm in agreement with you. The perks of reading through it twice. Yeah, I guess I'm going to make sure I do that too. I've got it in several mediums now.
Excellent. Yes, she got a very fancy copy.
It's not that fancy.
It's not that fancy, but I'm being super positive. It's a fancy copy. It's nicer than mine. I'm a little jealous. Chapter 1 starts, Ash fell from the sky. And then I did a double take to make sure I was reading chapter 1 and not the prologue again. But it's another powerful way to start off the chapter, yeah?
Yeah. And it's on its own line. It's all capitals. It just really, it's right. Obviously, if we were doing this in audiobook, we wouldn't have the same perception of it, but it shows how you're supposed to be reading it. Just a note, sorry, I will have the audiobook. I will be doing using the audiobook as my secondary run through of it. So just having that in mind, and to see how they actually just a sort of review of how I will read first and then listen to the audio to see how I read something versus how the audiobook read.
You have to let me know if the reader yells out that line.
Is that what you, in your mind, do you think Ash fell from the sky? But
Ash fell from the sky!
Yeah, because it's all caps. That's what you would be doing, I suppose.
No, I think it's less to convey yelling and more to convey the ever-present oppressiveness of the Ash.
I would not be surprised if Ash fell from the sky is the first line of every book.
That would be an interesting choice.
I know that, okay, again, I always bring it back to Robert Jordan. He starts each of his books with the same sort of a wind rises. They are never, you can cut this out, but the beginnings or endings, there are no beginnings or endings to the Wheel of Time and all of that. It's like a little thing that he just puts in. So I wonder if Brandon Sanderson does that as well, has this like little punctuation thing that he does with this.
If anyone has not subscribed to ThatDarnKitteh yet, by the way, highly recommend it. Last panel show we did on Thursday, she showed off her incredible Wheel of Time collection. And
very loved books, well-loved books.
Very well-loved books.
And we are well-loving Mistborn so far.
Yes. So now we're introduced to a new character, Vin. Vin watched the downy flakes drift through the air leisurely, careless, free. I think this is indicative of who Vin is as a person, or who she would like to be. I think it speaks to some amount of aspiration in her. These are qualities she wants. What do you think of that?
Yeah, there is a desire. It would be great for her to have that sort of freedom is highly valued to her, but the carelessness and she's got a lot of anxiety and a lot of worry, a lot to worry about. So it does make sense that she does desire this sort of lightness that she sees, even though it's still ash. There's a nice juxtaposition there between ash being a sort of negative thing, but then like it's still free because it's floating and it's weightless, and it's at the same time it's light but dark at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Light but in terms of weight, but dark in terms of the actual.
Well, that's such an interesting point of view to have, though, because up until this point, we have, or at least I have perceived the ash as this ever-present, oppressive state of the world. And here is this person who sees the ash as careless and free, or having this careless, free quality, which it makes me... There's not enough in these first few sentences to say that I like Vin. I do like her, certainly by the end of the chapter, but I think immediately builds this, it's a brick in this wall of likable qualities that she has.
That she literally is thinking, what would that be like? She doesn't know what it's like. Yeah. We know, she's letting us know that.
Who doesn't want to be free?
Yeah.
We find out that she is in Luthadel, which is the capital and was mentioned in the previous chapter. And it opens to find that Vin is hiding in the watch hole of her crew's hideout. So she is seeking this moment of solitude. Vin sat quietly in one of the crew's watch holes, a hidden alcove built into the bricks on the side of the safe house. From within it, a crew member could watch the street for signs of danger. Vin wasn't on duty. The watch hole was simply one of the few places where she could find solitude, and Vin liked solitude. And we get another very specific belief statement: when you're alone, no one can betray you.
The first sort of line or lesson from her brother that she starts, she gives us. How do you say his name?
Reen.
Okay.
How do you say it?
No, I don't know if it was Reen or Rian or something. I don't know, but why would it be Rian anyway? Yeah.
I hear Rian, I think Rian Johnson, and then I just get sad for the state of Star Wars. Oh, my heart. No, I've been thinking Reen.
Okay.
So there's this sadness to her. So now there's this longing to be free, and this belief, she's inhabiting this idea of betrayal.
And she needs to be, the only way to be away from betrayal is to be alone, which is deeply saddening to, and the fact that this lesson comes from her brother, that rubbed me the wrong way. I was very sad about that.
Yes, when you're alone, no one can betray you. Reen's words. Her brother had taught her so many things, then had reinforced them by doing what he'd always promised he would, by betraying her himself.
Yeah.
So again, this is building up, I think, the reader's empathy for this character. She has suffered so much. I feel so bad.
Yeah, and that held up next to this. What would it be like to be free and careless? That immediately that sends that home even with even more strength.
Yeah. The ash continued to fall. Sometimes Vin imagined she was like the ash, or the wind, or the mist, a thing without thought, capable of simply being, not thinking, caring, or hurting. Then she could be free. So it's, again, these bricks are starting to pile up. We're getting very well done, I think, characterization. But she is disturbed in her solitude by a young man named Ulif. Vin thinks of Ulif as a gangly, naive boy who is a member in Kammen's gang. And we'll learn about who Kammen, how do you say the name?
Kammen.
We'll learn
I'm
about
going to get
Kammen.
into the audiobook and we'll see what that says
Yes,
as well.
updates are needed.
Yeah.
We'll learn more about Kammen coming up, but Ulif, she considers this gangly, naive boy, well, as naive as one can be, living as a criminal in this oppressive society. So Kammen
What would that look like?
What
would
would
what would being naive as a thief look like?
Maybe somewhat optimistic in nature. Maybe having that more carefree personality, perhaps.
Yeah,
just not as jaded.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, has not jaded. Doesn't have the sort of cynicism.
Not all of us have brothers that have betrayed us and don't have to live with that. Oh man.
Like it's really hammering this thing about the brother. Okay, we know she's been properly. Everybody knows that's the one that got that was betrayed.
Yes, and like we really learn just how much her brother's influence has on her. Like she really cannot let this go. She sees betrayal everywhere. She sees his lessons everywhere. I don't know if he's alive or dead, or if he's going to be his own character later on in the story. I'd be very curious to see a reconciliation. And I wonder if, like, was it a betrayal? Well, maybe he was captured by obligators or something and taken to the pits of Hathsin, and like maybe he didn't want to, or maybe it's exactly what she fears, and it was to teach her the lesson.
That's what I'm scared of. That's exactly what I was like. Okay, I don't want to jump ahead in the story. What I think is going to happen, but you do wonder if maybe he did this for to keep her safe. Something happened that it wasn't, like you said, it could have been, it wasn't his fault, or he was taken and he didn't choose to leave. But the thing is, he sounds really bad. Just what he's literally said, he would always he promised her he would betray her, that's interesting. So my hope is that there is something there that makes that turn out better, that it wasn't that she wasn't betrayed, but then that would be a huge journey for her to go on, from just being this person that has been betrayed and this is all she's believed, and everybody's believed this about her as well and about her brother, and then all of a sudden she would have to now rethink everything if this revelation came about. But who knows?
Right.
People have read the book now.
There is no spoilers in the comment section. There's so much potential here, and I'm really excited to see how that works. So we learn that she is part of a gang of thieves. Life was harsh on the streets, and if a ska thief wanted to keep from being caught and executed, he had to be practical. And ruthlessness was the most practical of emotions, another of Reen's sayings. So Ulif tells her that she needs to get going to get to Kammen, because Kammen is mad, and she thinks, when is he not? So Kammen is this leader of this crew of thieves, and she brushes past Ulef, hops out of the trapdoor, and she heads off to find Kammen, and Ulef follows behind, and we basically learn that Kammen is working on a job, and it's this really complex job. Yeah? She left the building through a back door, Ulef trailing behind her. The job would happen a few blocks away in a richer section of town. It was an intricate job, one of the most complex Vin had ever seen. She exits the alleyway, moving onto a dark, tenement-lined street in one of the city's many ska slums. Ska, too sick to work, lay huddled in corners and gutters, ash drifting around them. So this is one of the earlier descriptions of Luthadel that we're going to get. And it takes place in this slum. What's your impression
of the slums? Well, in the prologue, there was, people get wages in the city or whatever, right? But that did not mean that Lutherdale is a great place. Clearly not. There's still scar there. There's still this distinction between classes, clearly. And it continues into the city. I did have that glimpse of, oh, well, in the city people get wages, therefore it could be better there. But it's just a different brand of miserable. And it seems like the scars don't have jobs anyway. They're still slaves. So people could have other people that are above Scar can have wages and live, but the slum thing, this is the norm for them. And also with the ash, just the imagery of the ash still around, everything is still just so gray in my head.
Yeah,
it's all gray.
I can't imagine the Lutherdale cleaning services paying too much attention to wiping ash off the streets of the slums. And it's also important to note, it's not children playing, it's not adults in their off time, it's Ska who are too sick to work. These aren't free Ska, they are discarded Ska.
Yeah, they've got nothing. They're just there.
Yeah.
Just existing, and you don't know where you don't know what they're doing, how are they existing, how they're continuing to exist. They're just busy starving there, basically.
Yeah. Although we do know that there are some other Ska who don't seem to be slaves. Perhaps they're runaways. I'm talking about Vin and Kamen and Ulef. They live in these slums, I guess, and they are thieves, filling out the world more. We get, but by the end of this little section, we get one last belief statement from Vin, a very pessimistic one, because she doesn't seem to be a slave in the sense there isn't a nobleman master, but she thinks free. No, I'll never be free. Reen made certain of that when he left. And we know that Kamen is not a nobleman, and we'll get into why that is in a moment, but she seems to be a slave. She owes him a debt, or more specifically, Reen's debt, if I understand it all correctly.
Yeah, she does just anything she's earning is just to earn her way out, and it seems like this debt is so large that it's never going to happen. And she knows that. She's like, yeah, I'll never be free. She's stuck because of this brother of hers.
Yeah. So for all intents and purposes, she is still a slave.
Just to a different master.
Yep. Which brings into this this interesting idea of Ska enslaving other Ska. It's like, why would you do that?
Yeah, should you not have some sort of compassion for your fellow man because you yourself have been enslaved for generations? No, you're just trying to. You're justified. You can justify yourself this way because you live in this world and you're just making things happen.
Yep.
And tough luck.
Yep. Then we get into this next little section of the chapter. There you are. Kamen lifted a squat, fat finger and jabbed it towards her face. Where were you? And we learn that Kamen is this fat man who wears many rings and, well, Vin didn't let her hatred or rebellion show in her eyes. She simply looked down, giving Kamen what he expected to see. There were other ways to be strong. That lesson she had learned on her own.
That just brings the pain to me. It brings more pain to me.
Yeah. So Kamen, like, smacks her in the face at this point because he's mad, and he's smacking her with these big rings.
And fat fingers, sorry. I mean, that should make a difference too.
Yes. That's gotta hurt. Like, there's an immediate dislike of Kamen now.
Oh yeah, very easy.
Kamen seems to be very concerned about this job, but Vin thinks, well, this is just another bruise. She's strong enough to deal with it. She's done it before. Merely another pain. I can deal with pain. She's
learned how to. She's okay with pain, actually. It's commonplace to her. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah. So for Vin, it's not, this longing to be free isn't necessarily just this boredom with the drudgery of life and the oppressiveness of the ash. She is in this abuse.
She's literally abused, yeah.
Yeah. But she deals with it, and we learn that Kamen is annoyed about something. Perhaps he had heard about the Ska rebellion several days to the north. One of the provincial lords, Themos Tresting, had apparently been murdered, his manor burned to the ground. Such disturbances were bad for business. They made the aristocracy more alert and less gullible. So this is a bit of news carrying over from the prologue chapter.
Mm.
And we're also getting a distance. So we know the events of the prologue happened very close to Luthadel, which is interesting because Tresting considered himself just another country lord. So I would have imagined that he was farther away in location from the capital. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's as if, because it's the kind of life is so different, I suppose, for him. He thinks that makes him distant in that manner, but not physically. He's actually not that physically distant from it. It's just that his qualitatively it's different.
Fair. Also, with all this talk of bureaucracy and with how oppressive this society is, it could be that even though he's just a few days from Luthadel, it may have been that he wasn't even allowed to leave his farm to travel to the city unless specifically requested by, say, the
you can't
obligator.
Just go around. Yeah, exactly.
And we know that Tresting found the obligators uncanny and that he feared them. So, I'm not saying this to bring any amount of empathy to Tresting, but it's highlighting that even the noblemen have elements of oppression forced upon them, possibly.
Yeah, they have things to deal with. There's and yeah, it's understanding. It's not empathy in like, oh, really, we feel sorry for you, Tristan. It's more like, no, we just see the intricacies of noble life do also involve oppression and walking on certain eggshells, like basically walking on eggshells to try and keep your position or improve it, obviously.
Right. Vin observes Kamen, and we learn another quality about Vin, and that she's a very insightful person. She has a talent for reading people. He's looking for someone to punish, Vin thought. He always gets nervous before a job. She looked up at Kamen, tasting blood on her lip. She must have let some of her confidence show, because he glanced at her out of the corner of his eye, and his expression darkened. He raised his hand as if to strike again. Vin used up a bit of her luck.
And capital L.
Capital L, luck. So on my first read through, I got very excited here because luck is one of my favorite superpowers. What are your thoughts? What's going on in your mind as you read this?
Well, in the context of the prologue, so coming straight from the prologue, this thing of using a bit of her luck, and also it's I get the sense that it is perishable, kind of like she can actually run out of it, so she uses a bit of it because it's finite. So that I still had the feeling of her, oh, she must be doing something similar to what Calcio was doing. So that's the frame I was put in from that. So it was, I thought this already was a good way that somebody would conceptualize some sort of magical thing. She thinks it's luck because it just makes things go her way. So I got the idea that it was not an official thing. I thought, oh, okay, she just doesn't. I got the feeling, oh, she just doesn't know what she's doing, and she just decided to call it luck. Right. So I was already on that track. But I think you have a reason that you thought of luck as a superpower, luck itself as like an element.
Yeah. Right. So that perspective that you just articulated is where I ended up. Right. So my immediate read through was just this excitement for luck as a superpower. And I think
Oh.
that like overrided my analytical skills in the matter. But as I read through this and we learn a little bit more about her power, you're right. You realize she uses it in a way that Kelsier used it, which had me thinking, okay, she is doing what Kelsier did, and it's not luck, and there's just a lack of knowledge. So it's natural that she would consider it luck. Because I got like a little annoyed for a while that she was basically using Charm Person from D&D. We learn that she uses this power to affect other people's emotions subtly. So she's basically casting Charm Person on people. And I was like, wait a second, that's not how luck works as a superpower. But then I started to realize it was her referring to it in that way is a sign of her naivety regarding magic in this world. And I'm back to liking it. So that was my journey.
So were you irritated the whole way through? Like, because that isn't how luck is. Yeah, go on your rant. I know you have a rant.
I wrote a rant out in my notes, which will be uploaded to Kitty's Discord. If you haven't subscribed to Kitty, I highly recommend you do it. And on her YouTube page, you can find the link to the Discord where she will post these things. So I wrote rant about how enchantment is not luck. I can currently think of 2 ways luck can manifest as a superpower. Luck can manifest through an uncontrollable, things just work out for me type of power. For example, I don't have any cash, but I really want to buy a cup of coffee. Oh, look, a $20 bill someone dropped on the ground. Well, that was lucky. Or through probability manipulation. For example, a person who goes to Vegas and plays poker, if they have 3 aces and there's a 1 in 40 some odd chance of drawing the 4th ace out of the deck, a person can manipulate that down to a 1 in 2 chance or a 1 in 3 chance, increasing the probability that the good outcome will happen. And as I've already mentioned, what Vin is doing is much more akin to enchantment, Charm Person, or Friends in D&D. But she refers to her luck, to her power as luck, and it could be that she just considers herself lucky for having it. We could learn it's not luck related. I put a little asterisk. I wonder if this luck is the power of a half-breed mentioned in the prologue.
So that's thank where I was.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me get through that rant. And it was, I love it. Wait a second. No, wait, yeah, I love it. That was my arc.
That's awesome though, that the way we both had different experiences of it, but we came to the same, okay, this is what he wants us to believe. He wants us to know about it.
Yes.
By the end of the chapter.
So this realization, this possibility that these superpowers, this magic is only for half-breeds, that's not supported yet in the text, but it would suggest that Kelsier is also a half-breed.
Yeah.
What are you thinking on that topic?
Well, then Kelsier is a half-breed because he does the burning allomancy thing. That makes sense to me. But then what this makes me think of, is she one of those? Then she's able to burn this thing, even though she doesn't know. So we did say that, okay, maybe Kelsier does it because he says he's doing something he can. In the beginning, it was he's doing something he can still scarcely understand. So we were thinking, or I was thinking then, okay, maybe he doesn't really know. He just calls it burning something when it's actually not that. He's just got certain terms that are unofficial. It's just how he's come to term it because it's made. I thought he was doing what actually she's doing here, and it seems like he actually does know what he's doing a lot more than she does. She has gone now and made up this thing in her head that it's luck, and she knows that she knows how to do it at will. She knows it's she's only got a certain amount of it, and it does seem like that would be that they're both half breeds.
Right, and if this magic is powered by metal, and she doesn't know what her power is, and that it's powered by metal, it makes sense that she wouldn't like have a lot of mana to use.
Yeah, it's mana. Yeah.
But it also makes me wonder, like, how is she getting any mana? What is she drinking? Is she using like the iron in her veins that we all have?
What is and does she have to burn a certain metal to do this?
Right, because this
kind of one.
This is a different power. Yes, it is a different power than Kelsier's. So different.
So metal. I want to know more about this magic so bad. But listen, it's we're actually learning quite quickly. Chapter. I mean, in terms of the chapters,
and we're still so early. It's just the first chapter.
So
like the two of us were reading it slowly because we're like doing this weekly thing, and we don't want to read ahead, but we really want to, but we're not. So yes. So she uses her luck, or at least just a smidgen of it, on Kamen, and it calms his nerves. The crew leader paused, oblivious to Vin's touch, yet feeling its effects nonetheless. He stood for a moment, then he sighed, turning and lowering his hand. And we learn that Kamen is dressed up in a nobleman's suit next, and that his role, whatever this thievery, whatever this job is, it involves Kamen taking on the role of a nobleman. And this was interesting to me because from the way Tresting thought of the Ska, and from the capital letters that you noticed in the prologue, I didn't consider the Ska human. So, and even by the end of the prologue, where I did start to think of them as a bit more human than I had initially thought, I still figured or assumed that they were different enough from the noblemen that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But apparently you can, and that's a big deal for me, at least.
Yeah, how are they singled out? If it's what makes them Ska? If they can just dress up and not be Ska anymore, and I know that they can get caught. That it's not like it's that easy, but yeah, they are. It seems like it's not readily available to see. Oh, this person is a Ska. It's not like they are a different race visibly. So they might be a different race chemically.
Yep. So we learn a little bit more about this job. We learn that Kamen is taking on the role of a Lord Jedua, a country nobleman who had hit upon hard financial times and come to Luthadel to get some final desperate contracts. So that may actually counteract what I was saying earlier about Tresting possibly not being able to travel, unless this Lord Jedua got permission to travel. Doesn't matter. And we learn that he has his other crew members dressed in formal steward's clothing, and they would play the part of Kamen's manservants when a new character, Theron, enters into the room. And Theron is another crew leader, and apparently he's the one that brought this job to Kamen.
But there's this uneasy relationship because they're both criminals. It's two
rival gangs, essentially, and there's always going to be tension there. But apparently Kamen is among the best at impersonating noblemen.
Well, sounds like he does have the qualities that they seem to have. The abuse and the anger and everything. It does seem to make sense.
Yep.
But this Theron, sorry. Yeah.
It's also, convenient to have the talent of being able to pretend to be noblemen. I imagine you would be less hassled by the police force, eat better food. It must be tempting to develop that skill.
Live off of it in a certain way.
Yep. But I forget where it was in this chapter that we learn it, but we learned that Theron has spent 5 years setting up this scam. So it's some sort of big, big job for him.
Yeah, to think about all the things that would go into having someone impersonate. Okay, so it does, because Kamen has had enough opportunity to impersonate noble people. It's nobleman because he's a man. He's definitely had enough time for that. But I'm just thinking, what kind of organizing do you have to do to make yourself a believable Lord person? It's not just showing up with some retainers and things. You have to have, it's a bureaucracy as well. So you have to have some sort of, some sort of falsifying of a house or something like that. That luckily we don't have to sit through, all of that. But he's put that through into our minds of, okay, well, it's taken that long to set up. So you can't try and be like, oh, well, that seems convenient. It's like, well, 5 years, that's pretty big.
Yes. And there's go on.
Just a thing about Theron. Theron eyed Vin, obviously noting her bloodied lip. She glanced away. Theron's eyes lingered on her, however. And he describes her, he describes this person, well, she describes because we're in her mind, but describes the way he looks at her body. She considers using luck on him. Like, there is a certain way he's looked at her that she was going to use luck on him because she thought he was going to come after her.
Getting trusting vibes from this guy.
That's disturbing because she and then she also, we get some a description of her as well. She's hardly enticing, scrawny with her youthful face. She didn't even look her 16 years, so she's 16. Just another thing that we pick up there, but
important and good note. So there's this tense interaction between Theron and Cammon. They clearly don't like each other. They don't necessarily. It's hard to say if they trust each other or not. But an important thing we learn in this interaction is that Vin doesn't necessarily have a role here. She's just kind of there to be there. Right? And as you said, she considers using the luck to calm Theron down a little bit and direct his attention elsewhere, but she doesn't in case she needs it, which may have been the best decision because, well, Theron leaves soon enough. And we get another insight into Vin's intelligence next. She studies the decor, the servants, the atmosphere, and she makes her way to Cammon's desk and she says, well, you read this one. You are the lady of the stream.
Cammon, Vin said quietly, the servants are too fine. So that's she even has to say this quietly. She doesn't just go up to him and speak. That she is a proper person of abuse. She is just trying. She knows that telling him anything is going to could set him off. So she's just. I just imagine this Cammon, Vin, like she says quietly. Cammon, Vin says quietly, the servants are too fine. Like she's just crying. Yeah.
Cammon frowned, looking up. What is it that you're babbling?
The servants, Vin repeated, still speaking in a soft whisper. The servants. Lord Jadu is supposed to be desperate. He'd have rich clothing left over from before, but he wouldn't be able to afford such rich servants. He'd use Scar. So that also is another thing, sorry, just that I've picked up now, is so servants aren't, you can have servants that aren't Scar. You can just pay
apparently.
People. Yeah, you don't have slaves, you just actually have people. So, but you'd use Scar instead. So that's another layer of the society.
Yep. And it says the servants Cammon had appointed were dressed as minor noblemen. They were allowed to wear colorful vests and they stood a little more confidently.
The obligator has to think that you're nearly impoverished,
Vin said.
Pack the room with a lot of Scar servants instead.
So Cammon has this annoyed reaction and Vin kind of regrets this. And it's brave of her. You said you had interpreted that line or these lines as sort of a timid. I had imagined her saying these lines with a little bit more self-assurance. She knows that this is an extremely important detail and that he needs to do this. And fortunately, Cammon comes to that conclusion as well. And he orders his crew members to go change into Ska outfits.
Well, she also just the fact that just thinking about your self-assurance thing and everything, it's that she knows what she's saying has
value.
As value and it will affect. She wants this job to work. She knows that, she wants it to work. So she wants this message to get out. She takes the risk of she could just keep quiet and just think to herself and then be proven right later, but that will also affect them. So she still takes the risk to tell him because it is worth it. And she does, I mean, even when he says, what do you know? She says, enough. She immediately regretted the word. It sounded too rebellious. But the thing is, she answered it. She answered him. So she's always got to keep a lid on. She's always trying to think about how she's supposed to speak and react in a way that will she can get away with. And this you're right. She was confident about this. It's just that her approach to him is the only thing that was tentative about it. It's not about that she doesn't think that she's right. It's just that she doesn't know how to get this through to him without him bursting and going crazy.
Well said. Navigating a minefield with your abuser.
Mm-hmm.
And the obligator arrives shortly after. And this is our introduction to Prelin or Prelin. How are you saying that word?
Prelin? Yeah, let's just say Prelin.
Prelin Laird, who is a high-level obligator in the Ministry's Canton of Finance. A set of lesser obligators trailed behind him, their eye tattoos far less intricate. So, again, we can tell the level of obligator based off of the tattoos around their eyes. So as Cammon and Prelin Laird are saying their greetings with each other, and Prelin Laird is being a little bit dismissive, and Cammon's complaining about his knees, Vin contemplates to herself how badly she needs this job to work. And we learn that Cammon has kept Vin around because he's made this connection between Vin and scams going right. But Cammon doesn't seem to know the full depth. So whatever magic or magic power that Vin has, Cammon doesn't know about it, but he's smart enough to make this connection. And it makes me wonder just how secret these magic powers are, or if it's just that Cammon just doesn't exist in the magical world at all, so we wouldn't know.
He never thought of it. Yeah. Just another thing of why, just a few paragraphs back, he does say to Vin, do you realize that a less merciful man less merciful than myself would have sold you to a whoremasters long ago? How would you like that? Serving in some nobleman's bed, blah, blah. So he's like, oh, I'm being merciful by keeping you around. But actually, a couple paragraphs later, we find out it's because she's valuable in a different way to him. It's not because he's being merciful. He's just put two and two together.
Well, that's just textbook abuser behavior, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're so lucky I'm so good while I beat you.
Yes, you could be so much worse. You could have life so much worse. You should be grateful to me. So that's exactly it. Well, she does talk about her brother had always said that the surest way to stay alive in the underworld was to make yourself indispensable. And yeah, that's what she's done. She's staying alive, but it's not the best living, is it? But
no.
This is her existence, and she is indispensable. Well done. Still being abused to high heaven.
Now, Laird, to be clear, Prelin, I think, is the obligator title, and Laird is his name. So Laird basically informs Lord Jedua, or Jedu, that the Canton of Finance has already voted on your proposal to the negative, presumably. We have decided not to accept your contract. And Vin thinks Laird came to, well, you do her thanks, please.
Laird came to meet you, Vin thought. That means he's still in a position to negotiate. So it's like, sorry, I just want to put in there that I do feel a bit of tension from her. Like she wants him to at least to hear this. She wants him to know this. She is hoping he perceives that. The way that this is worded is Laird came to meet you, Vin thought. This means he's still in a position to negotiate, not to meet him. She's thinking it to him, while hoping that he perceives what she perceives. And it seems like that's a lot of her existence, is perceiving things and hoping other people perceive them.
Exactly. And this isn't Cammon's first rodeo, obviously, and he does pick up on that. But again, this speaks to Vin's intelligence and her emotional quotient, her EQ. as well. Laird allows Lord Jeddu to make his arguments, and I don't think the arguments are tremendously persuasive. They're a little bit basic for my taste. They're accurate, presumably. Well, what did you think? The arguments were, I have no other deals. That means your one big job for me will take all of my attention. You will be our most important customer. And the reason I think that's a little basic is because, in theory, all of my customers are my most important customers. So I wonder if there are not stronger arguments that could have been made. But the point is, it's not really working on him. So what do you think?
Yeah, it is very, just because it makes sense that it's an argument, it's not a strong argument. It makes sense because it just depends on how much you would believe, how much more value do you get from being a house's last chance. It's a very emotional argument. You have to really think, oh no, we get to be the big, well, maybe we get to be big bullies to them because we're their only patrons. But they are a government institution, so I don't think that they are in need of bullying rights. They will bully anyone. It doesn't matter. So it's a very emotional argument to be making. It's not a very logical one. It's not something that has really great merit in business sense. And it's okay. It's consistent.
Yeah, it's an okay argument. But in addition, he also offers like a wonderful price for the service that he's offering. So Laird is sort of into it, but not really. And Vin has this observation that the Steel Ministry is not just a force of bureaucracy and legal authority, but also like a noble house unto itself. And that's a little bit of world building there. But then, just to seal the deal, she decides to use her magic. She reached out tentatively, not really sure what she was doing or why she could even do it. Yet her touch was instinctive, trained through years of subtle practice. She'd been 10 years old before she'd realized that other people couldn't do what she could. So there are two important elements here. One, that she is using the magic on the obligator. And two, well, what I just read, that she was 10 and that others, when she realized others can't do it.
No, you get also some more of what it's like for her to use this power a little bit. She pressed against Laird's emotions, dampening them. He became less suspicious, less afraid. So it just gives you a little bit of, she can feel all of this, and you actually get this feel, okay, it's kind of, she gets a sensation that she's pressing against him or his emotions and all of the things that he is feeling. And then she goes docile. His worries melted away, and Vid could see a calm sense of control begin to assert itself in his eyes. So it's a tiny little passage there, but you really do get what I love about magical stories is a sort of a feel of what the person is doing with the magic. I like that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Even though she doesn't know what she's doing, we still get a feel for what it's like to do that. And that's a different thing to what we had Calcio do. He was doing something different.
She's adjusting the chemical balance.
Yeah.
And Laird still seems slightly uncertain. He cocks his head, looking thoughtful. Perhaps that's a sign that it's working, but it's not quite there. She uses up the last pinch of her luck, and he says, very well, I will take this new proposal to the council. Perhaps an agreement can still be reached. She passed her DC check, her difficulty check. And that ends the chapter. Oh, what a journey.
Yeah. I like the way I like the way he goes last pinch of luck. That's so good. I'm sorry. I know it's just a word, but it works so well.
It's well done. I like, so good. I like Vin. I think she has a lot of good qualities. I hope we don't spend too much time moving forward. I hope we don't spend too much time in the woe is me, everyone will betray me sort of mindset. but I think here it was done effectively in garnering empathy for her. And
as an introduction, yeah.
Yes, and I think she's displayed some really wonderful intelligence
and strength.
And that makes me like her a lot. What are your thoughts on Vin?
Yeah, it's exactly how I'm feeling, that there is depth to her. So I'm happy to see all different qualities that come through. She does have she's in a really crappy situation. She does want freedom. So there is the woe is me part, but you can expect that to be, because that's literally it's a huge part of her life. What do you expect? But she still has intelligence, and she still maneuvers within her bounds. So she's found a way to exist within this abuse, and that also brings up the sympathy. I expect we could get irritated by the woe is me stuff, and I do think it might continue, and I won't blame Branderson for doing that, because you are allowed to be irritated with the thought patterns of a character, because those that when they're so deeply entrenched and like disordered and whatever, that's human. You can't make I guess you can go overboard and make your character unlikable, but if he is trying to frustrate you if he wants you to feel frustrated with her limits, with her, he wants you to feel constrained by her psychological damage, that would irritate you, and he wants to irritate you with it. So I would not blame him if he did. That's all I'm saying.
Well said. But yeah, overall a good chapter, good world building, and we're still so early. This was just the first chapter. I'm excited to see where we go. Do you have any last thoughts, Kitty, before we depart?
No, I don't. My biggest one was the enjoyment of the magic. I'm enjoying the magic. That's what I love about fantasy. So the magic system and things like that. So we've got the perspective of someone who doesn't really know what they're doing, to somebody who does, which
excellent.
Does. Cool.
Well then, thank you everyone who listened again for the third time. Go and subscribe to ThatDarnKitteh, and where she does
Dorkus
wonderful.
On the Thursday.
Say that again.
You can see Dorkus on the Thursday on my channel.
She does wonderful debate diagrams and the occasional book diagram on Tuesdays, and then she has a panel show on Thursdays that I join. And if you join the Discord, she will be uploading my notes, which are in diagram form. So you can check them out for yourselves. Thank you so much to everyone who listened, and have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.